أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتحدون الذي لا يدركه بعد الحمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم وآل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين صاحب العصر والزمان خليفة الرحمن إمام الإنس والجان ولعن الله أعداهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد فقد قال الله وقوله الحق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الذين آمنوا والذين هاجروا وجاهدوا في سبيل الله أولئك يرجون رحمة الله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your grief and your gham from the first 10 days of Muharram and specifically the day of Ashura. May He include us amongst those who did not forget the tragedy of Imam Hussein. We shed tears, we sacrificed, we did everything we could in this very, very different era to uphold the sanctity of the institution of Azadari. May Allah elevate us, may Allah allow us to stand beside Imam al-Zamana inshallah when he comes. In these next 2 nights that I'm with you until the 12th of Muharram, I wanted to speak a little bit and break a little bit away from the topic that we talked about of one nation in the first 10 days. And I always kind of, speak about 2 different or 1 different standalone lecture after the day of Ashura, only because I feel like we're in a different mindset. We're in a little more. We're in a little bit more of a reflective mindset after Ashura, and no doubt we're tired. And this year, I'm not sure what all of you, how your Shabi Ashur went or your day of Ashura went, but this year, I can't imagine it to be as busy as it was in other years in terms of just physical commute, going from here, going from there. Unless, of course, the homes were open all night, and it depends. But I do know that we are tired, we're drained, including myself, and it's a moment for us to kind of catch our breath. And when we catch our breath, when things kind of settle, we're able to kind of look back and see what did we try to accomplish in the past 10 nights. And how far did I get and how far do I need to go? And so what I want to speak about today and tomorrow is the reality of change, is migration, transformation. I've said this before in the Ashra, and I'll just very briefly repeat it now. We should be, as the Shia nation, we should be a little bit better than we are now. We have this khazana, we have this treasure, not only of Azadari, but all of these various jashans and munasib dates throughout the year. We gather, we celebrate the Ahlul Bayt, we commemorate the Ahlul Bayt. And so what I want to speak about initially is that I find that there's a huge gap between 2 things. And the huge gap is, and if you remember my last discussion before the day of Ashura, we talked about, knowledge and how knowledge has to convert into action. Going based on those lines, connecting that to the 9th of Muharram lecture, we are individuals sometimes who are quick to be enlightened. We're wowed by certain things. Certain things catch our attention. And we kind of are mesmerized by those things. Be it like, be it a speech or a speaker, be it, let's say, for example, a commercial, a scene in a movie, a quick 3 minutes, Islamic video that someone shares on WhatsApp. Various things that we're kind of like, wow, and then we share it and we forward it and we tell others. And that's the reality of it. It's just common. It's natural. What isn't quite natural is to take that moment of enlightenment, that moment of wow, that moment of being, drawn in, and convert that to real change. Okay. Now you've heard me talk about sparks in the past, and I won't talk about sparks. I think I've killed that discussion. But I think it is important that we understand a spark is a spark, right? And Muharram, especially the first 10 days, are filled with sparks. And in this Muharram, when you had all sorts of knowledge coming from you, from every YouTube channel to every TV station to everything, there was no shortage of sparks to change. But to convert those into actual change, long-lasting change, I think is difficult. It's hard. And I get it. I'm with you. And there's reasons behind that. So what I want to tackle in these 2 nights to close out the Ashra is that I want to look at the idea of migration, number 1. Number 2 is, what are those factors to change? And tomorrow, inshallah, is the sustainability of change. The base of our discussion will be from Surah Baqarah, verse 218, I believe, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala groups 3 different types of people together. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَالَّذِينَ هَاجَرُوا وَجَاهَدُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Right? The mu'min, the muhajir, the mujahid. The believer, the migrant, and the one who struggles. Okay? And these 3, if they do it fi sabilillah, they can expect ulaika yarjuna rahmatullah. They can expect raja. They can expect hope in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on this muqaddamah here today. I don't have the luxury of having 10 nights to go slow, and I want to dive right in. But I do want all of us to understand that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about migration, automatically we believe, maybe I believe, that the migration is a physical one. Meaning from one place geographically to another place geographically. A lot of my immigrant families who are listening to me right now, you came from your respective India, Pakistan, Iraq, Iran, Africa, wherever you're from, and you've migrated into your respective city. That's no doubt a physical migration. That's going from one area to another, of course. But Tafsir says in this verse that migration can also happen from one spiritual state to another. Like, for example, if you, are going to migrate from Hyderabad, Deccan, all the way to, let's say, New Jersey, or, Winnipeg, or, let's say, Toronto, or wherever, let's say, for example, then we have to understand that is one migration, no doubt. But another one that maybe perhaps is a little bit more long-lasting is from one spiritual state, one state of taqwa, to another state of taqwa. Where the words that we hear from the minbar or the words that we hear from everybody else has to resonate and has to be a catalyst for that change. Change is hard, guys. It's not easy. And there's reasons for that I'll go through. But there's a reason why, we have kind of been status quo, at least some of us, for a very long time, even though we know that status quo won't cut it nowadays. And sometimes, as much as a human being has tried to change, it won't change, right? I mentioned this in another ashra that, for example, this whole topic on justice, if you look at, for example, and people have done this comparison, we look at the speeches in the 60s of Dr. King and Malcolm X to some of the speeches in 2020, and literally, there's no difference between the two. So 60 years later, there's been no progress in the racial movement. The NBA players boycotted their playoff games a couple of nights ago. Bill Russell, a legendary basketball player, also boycotted 60 years ago when two of his teammates were denied service because they were black in a hotel in Lexington, Kentucky. 60 years has passed, it's the same issue, and yet we have the gall and the audacity to claim that we have advanced as a human race. I get phone calls, at the point I mentioned before, I get phone calls saying, you know what, maybe, why aren't the Maraji, modernizing the Sharia? Why aren't the Maraji revisiting some of the Sharia rulings to fit 2020? To fit the movement, the advancement, the progress of 2020. And I find it comical sometimes that we actually believe that we've progressed. Because progression, as I always say, is not measured by the tools outside of us, but rather by the reality inside of us. Of course, the things outside us have progressed, no doubt. But true progression lies within the hearts. And dare I say, we have regressed as human beings. That we resemble the era of Jahiliyyah, pre-Islam in Mecca and Arabia. Anyways, so we know that the human being is comfortable with status quo. And the reason why it's comfortable with status quo is because it has to accept the fact that there is something to change. And there lies in the first barrier. The reason why it's so hard to change, and the reason why those who do change, those, let's say, for example, who go to Hajj and come back wearing hijab, those, for example, who have done a complete 180 and have found the deen, for example, those individuals, for example, who have cut a horrible habit out of their life that they've done for 15, 20 years, it's because the first thing that has to happen is the individual has to accept the fact that I need to change. Meaning what? There is a better version of me out there. Now, for me to understand there's a better version of me out there, I have to not to be okay with the current vision of me, right? Like version 1.2 of me right now, I have to say, you know what, I can do better. Let's update to 2.2, for example. Okay, that process is easier said than done, right? To sit there and to tell yourself, okay, I know that I do this wrong. I get it. I talked about this in the idea of judgment. This idea that, be true to yourself, right? Being true to yourself doesn't mean that you accept the way you are blindly. That if you are an animal when it comes to your anger or desire and someone calls you out to, hey man, I'm being true to myself, man. I'm not a hypocrite. I'm not a liar, right? Those of my sisters who sometimes, tell themselves, I don't want to wear hijab because, I don't feel like it. I want to wait till I feel like it to wear hijab. Otherwise, I'm a hypocrite, right? They've fallen into prey of be true to yourself. There's an element of the deen, and a lot of you may not be able to hazm and digest this. There's an element of the deen that says do this only because God says so. Has nothing to do with how you feel. Sorry. But I should know why I'm doing it. No, not always. Not always. I'm sorry. You shouldn't always know why you're doing it. It's enough to know that it came from God. That's it. Okay? And if I had time to expand, I would, and I have spoken about that in your community several times. This idea and this notion that we don't have to be convinced, sold, and do a complete buy-in in order for us to follow the Sharia. It's enough that God says so, khalas. That's it. Where did my emotions and how I feel about it come in? Sorry. No. Is that not blind faith? Of course not. It's not blind faith. Blind faith is that when you don't accept the source of the rule, not the rule itself. When the source of the rule makes sense to you, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He makes sense to you intellectually, whatever comes down from that source of the rule, I follow. Whether it makes sense to me or not. Right? There are certain laws in our specific cities that maybe I don't get. Right? I don't understand. But it comes from, a group of enforcement. Because I believe in the idea of law, I'm going to go ahead and follow it. Right? Like, for example, I just found out, I was at my brother's house, my older brother's house, a few months back. And, he had invited us for a barbecue, and it's been a long time. And anyway, so he was telling me about his raccoon problem in his backyard, okay? Sorry. He's got raccoons in his backyard. And I said, I said, do something about it. He goes, look, by law, at least in city of Toronto, you can't hurt a raccoon. By law, you can't do anything to a raccoon. I said, what? He goes, yeah, you can't. You can't. Apparently they're annoying, yes, but they help out in terms of garbage, they help out. So apparently, if you cause any damage to a raccoon, you could be fined. Okay? And that law didn't make sense to me, but the next time I see a raccoon, I'm not going to touch it. I have respect. I understand there is law and order in society, and I am a person who abides by that law. If I'm somebody who's accepted Allah at the intellectual reasonable level, then whatever comes out for him, I get. Anyways, I don't want to go down that tangent. So this idea of I'm doing something because I don't understand it is absolutely part of the deen. It sounds odd, it sounds weird, it sounds very, very anti-West, right? And goes against whatever the Western says. However, it's not, it has to be understood at the logical level. Anyways, so the first thing is for us to accept the fact that this version of me is not the best version of me. That process alone sometimes takes a lifetime. Okay? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears 11 times in Surah Shams, 11 times in Surah Shams, only to say, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. When he's talking about the nafs, 11 times he swears, and then says that the successful ones are the ones who purify the soul. Look, when Allah swears by anything, whatever follows that swearing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will absolutely, he will, whatever he's saying, it is of utter importance. So now 11 times by different things he swears. Naturally, the ahmiyat and importance of this idea is crucial. Purifying your soul is success. Tainting your soul is failure. Okay? So now, 2 factors as to how can we begin this process. Okay, we just went through, mashallah, 10 nights together. No doubt your hearts are soft. No doubt, you feel very connected. It might have been a little bit of a different Muharram, of course. It didn't feel like a Sabha. It felt weird. It felt odd. It felt strange. Of course it did. But the silver lining in all this is that we didn't let go of the azadari. People learning technology, people somehow finding out a way to somehow manage, whether it's, multiple Zoom windows, people in their azakhara doing matam together, turn on your mic, leave your camera on. Let's at least make it feel like I'm right beside you, albeit in an online application software. Like, to me, all of that effort to somehow now maintain this azadari is the silver lining, right? It was a good litmus test. It was a good gut check for us to see how close are we to this azadari, and hopefully all of you felt like, it didn't feel right because I wanted more from it. I actually need more from it. And when it was a watered down version, meaning I'm sitting at home online trying to cry through a TV, hopefully it made you realize and made me appreciate the system of azadari that we currently have pre-pandemic. Anyways, so there's a silver lining in everything. But now our hearts are soft. And when hearts are soft, they can be easily molded. Let's look at 2 factors. Number 1 is the idea of pre-contemplation or contemplation, introspection. It's a massive topic, one that I don't want to spend too much time on. It's enough to know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, time and time again, He invites us towards tafakkur, tadabbur. Right? أَفَلَا تَفَكُّرُونَ. Will you not be those who contemplate? Okay? Even things like, for example, our marriages. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُم مَّوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لِآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. That in this idea that I created for you and from you spouses, you can find serenity inside of them. I place between you compassion and mercy, right? And this surely is a sign for those who contemplate. So even as you're going through your everyday life with your wife and your husband, take a moment now to contemplate on, and Tafsir has done a lot of bahas on what is it about the marriages that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to contemplate on. Just one example, of course, is marriage. And that is that, the idea that I as the husband, my wife as the wife, were two separate entities living two separate lives, right? Making our own decisions, having our own nuances, having our own habits, right? We had our own way of living our life. And then, qabiltu a few times, and now all of a sudden we're on one path. We have merged our individual lives into one single harmonious life. That merging, right, requires a certain set of abilities. The ability now to conform, to change, to sacrifice, okay, to make the two of us work. All of that is hidden inside of us. So we have the ability to change. We do. Provided that what? Provided that we invest and we buy in and we are convinced by the company that we're investing in. So if I want to uphold my marriage, if I love my wife, for example, if I love my husband, for example, and I want to be able to, strengthen this, then I'm going to do everything I can to change. Okay? And so we have a lot of us, who alhamdulillah have been married for a while and successful, and things are going alhamdulillah well. It's come with a lot of sacrifice. A lot of fine. I won't do this. You start doing this. You won't do this. I'll start do all these things. Of course, are there, and some of you can teach me a few things. So contemplation is the first one, and contemplation should breed the idea that I am worthy of that change. Oh, it's such an important point. I'm worthy of that change. Sometimes it's not so much the fact that change is hard. Sometimes it's the fact that I don't deserve a change, Maulana. I don't deserve to be better. If I am a nasty, angry, desire-filled person, because that's what I'm going to end up being. Nothing anyone can do about it, right? And either that comes from the idea that they've been fed that idea from when they were a child, by their teachers, by their students, by their parents, God forbid, or that they've gone through some really difficult experiences that has really taken a hit against their own self-worth and their own self-value, convincing themselves in the process that, you talk about this person being good and elevating towards Allah and someone who is a believer, a migrant, a person who struggles, but that's not me, Maulana. That's not me. I don't deserve it. I deserve to be this person, unmotivated, completely, drained. I'm okay with little sparks here and there, but this change business, no. Good people change, not me. Not me. And that of course, talks about the idea that, there's, that's one extreme, right? Where individuals now believe that I don't need to be a better version of me because I don't deserve to be a better version of me. Yeah, I can be more patient, I can be more this, I can be more that, but that's not who I am. That's not who I should be. That's one. The other extreme is ujb, right? Is narcissism. Right? Why is it so hard to change? Because you have to accept the fact that you need to change. And the narcissist inside of me says, whoa, wait a second. Others might have issues. You're good, man. You're good. You're good. You're a lot better than this person and that person, this person and that person. All those speeches of one nation, all those speeches of this and that, of akhlaq and reform, were all for everybody else. He's not talking to you up there. He's talking to other people. You're good. You're like, yeah, you're right. I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. And then we start to believe it, right? Because our ego says our ego says so, right? Imam Qayem alayhi salatu wasalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. It's a very beautiful hadith about ujb. He says, the highest level of ujb is that we believe that my worship is for Allah, meaning that what? I'm doing Allah a favor when I worship Him. Can you imagine? I'm doing ihsan over Allah by my measly worship. I, for some reason, am helping Him out. How exactly is that helping Him out? I don't understand. So the first idea of igniting that change, converting the spark into light, is this idea, taking the 10 days of azah and of jazba and emotion and energy and, this and that. How many photos I got of people saying that, what, we've converted our homes into azakhana? Beautiful, beautiful, and heart-wrenching. Like, there was one guy who took his TV off of his, his wall, his mount, and put it inside the corner, inside of his living room, surrounded by flags, surrounded by big signs. If he had nothing else, people would put black chadars, candles everywhere, and they would watch. And everybody would be sitting on the ground wearing black, watching. Right? So there is this energy that the first 10 days pulls. But then as quickly as the first 10 days are done, that's how much sometimes we get deflated after Ashura. And that's why, these next 2 nights are difficult for us to listen to, because I just went through this rigorous, emotional 10 days, especially after the day of Ashura, when, we're tired and our voice is half gone, and but I want to catch it before the heart hardens again. So it's a good chance for us to kind of spend some time with ourselves, contemplate a little bit. Don't be afraid of your thoughts. We're afraid of our own thoughts for some reason. So I don't want to go down too much. The second ingredient to begin this process actually has nothing to do with you or inside of you. It has everything to do with somebody outside of you. Okay? And I will say this, that the primary person to ignite the change inside of you is your spouse if you're married, or your parents if you're not. Provided that both of them are invested in your change. Provided that both of them now want to see you change. Provided also that we accept that change. Oh. Sometimes we hear our spouse tell us the ugly truth about ourselves that we've known for years. But it's okay if I tell myself the ugly truth, but for some reason when she says it, I don't want to hear it. So, if my spouse begins by saying, I think that you should really kind of, begin to, give more importance to self. Yeah, I know. I have to pray better. I know. I got it. Okay. Right? We do that. Not because we're mad at them, we're mad at the fact that they called me out for something I have known for years, right? I have sat there and I have killed myself over the fact that I'm just not on time with my salat. Egg didn't burning it, egg didn't burning it, this and that, this flip and flop, and then for someone who I love outside of me to confirm what I already know, I don't like it. So instead of me being upset at myself, I'm bachade mad at this person in front of me who just wants to perfect my worship. Right? So that's partly the ego, that's partly the narcissistic side of us, that I don't want to hear anything bad about me. You can compliment me all you want. Oh, keep it coming. Yeah. Or bolo. But we don't want to hear our spouse tell us that, maybe, we should do this. And that's why, to my young guys out there, it is crucial, absolutely crucial, that you choose the right spouse. And, a person who is on the path of taqwa, a person who is pious, a person who will not only travel with you, but will build with you. Not only will elevate themselves, but will take you along for the ride of elevation. That only happens when they themselves are in tune with their spirituality, right? Blue eyes and white skin sometimes isn't always in tune with the spirituality. Sometimes we have this idea, it's a whole discussion, by the way, that, beautiful people are nice people. Beautiful people are good people. If you're beautiful, if you have the colored eyes and you have the white skin and you have the, the gori, patli, whatever you guys want to say, then that means that they're a nice person. I swear to God, if you look it up, it's a whole psychological thing. And someone who's considered to be not so pretty is someone who is not so nice. It's absurd, obviously absurd. But it goes back to the elitist idea I talked about a couple of nights ago, right? This idea that because I have green eyes, I feel like I'm better than you. Anyways. So the hadith of Imam Jafar al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, says that do not marry somebody for beauty or for money. Because when you marry someone for beauty and for money, the beauty will fade, the money will deplete, and you'll have no taqwa to begin with, because you never looked for taqwa and piety. Instead, marry somebody for piety. With piety, the beauty will come and the wealth will come. When we live a pious life together, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised us that rizq will come your way. I have yet to know a person who is regular in their namaz-e-shab who doesn't live a comfortable life. And I'm not saying that the reason why people live a difficult life is because they don't pray namaz-e-shab. I'm just saying the power of that piety can be seen, sometimes not in that world, very much can be seen in this world. And sometimes, I have said this before, sometimes I really truly believe that when a person to you is beautiful on the inside, you've convinced him that this is the most beautiful, pure person I know in the world, and she happens to be my spouse, then she becomes the most attractive person to me as well. Because beauty sometimes travels inside out. It does. It doesn't always travel outside in. It doesn't, I'm sorry. I have seen cases of couples, and I walk in and I look at the wife and I look at the husband and I think to myself, how? Like how did you two get married? Like, just in terms of looks, right? And then when I talk to the guy one-on-one, he talks about how ugly his wife is. I don't want to come near her. We sleep in separate bedrooms. We don't have a life together. We're roommates, just splitting the bills. And I think, wow. And the ugliness he sees is not blemishes on her face. The ugliness he sees is in character, right? So when the character becomes ugly, every other part of the wujud, existence, becomes ugly as well. When the character becomes beautiful, that shines right through. Now there are those that are beautiful on the outside and beautiful on the inside, right? Like my wife, right? And then there are, and then we actually then begin to trigger the change process. Okay? And that change process is the fact that there's somebody now in my life beside me coaching me to change. Right? I have a dedicated coach that's sitting there working on my jump shot. Okay? Ben Simmons can't hit a three-pointer for his life, so what does he do? He gets someone to help him with his three-pointer. Okay? And he still can't shoot anything for his life. Anyways. Okay? So I have a dedicated person in my life right now beside me who is looking to what? Looking to get me to become a better version of me. Provided we don't fight that process. So two factors now to ignite this change, to convert the enlightenment of the first 10 days to change in our life. And tomorrow we'll talk about the sustaining of this change. Number one is contemplate, right? Stop and tell yourself, what do I need to work on? And there's been enough people around you now, I think, depending on how old you are, to tell you, you need to work on this, work on that, work on that. Be more patient, be less angry, watch your tone. You're very, round up. Just kind of be calm. That's the first step, let alone the steps to change. Let's first accept the fact that we need to update of our software. The second thing is to ensure that we surround ourselves with those people that don't constantly feed my ego, but sometimes, call me out on things. I'll give you one example and then Masad. And the one example that I have for you is that, the idea and the notion that a husband and a wife are, for example, even friends, right? So the hadith says that a believer is a mirror for another believer. Okay? A mirror. Okay? It's a very beautiful hadith, one that requires some explanation. And the explaining of it is that a mirror does two things. Tiga? Two things. The first thing the mirror does is that it tells you exactly the reflection that your face gives off. So if you have an annoying pimple on your face, the mirror will show you that pimple. sometimes bigger than it should be. If, for example, there is some scar in your face because you hit your head against the door or something, it'll show you that scar. If your eyebrows are uneven, ya Allah, ya Allah, then it will show you the unevenness of your eyebrows. If your beard was not lined up properly, the barber messed up, then it will show you. But if your beard is sickly lined up, nicely faded into your chin, blah blah blah, it'll show you that. If your eyebrows are fleek and on point, it's going to show you that. Everything, it'll show. The mirror is beautiful in the sense that it's not the mirror on the wall, who's the prettiest of them all mirror. It's a mirror that actually shows you exactly how you are, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Okay? That's the first thing it does. The second thing it does is that it preserves your reflection. It doesn't show your defects to the person after it. So for example, if on the way out of the house now, you have a mirror by the door, let's say for example, and you as the husband first go and make sure everything's okay, everything's good, check your glasses, you're good, okay, let's go, I'm in the car, you get to the car. Then your wife comes afterwards and she checks her image. The mirror won't show your wife your image. The mirror will show her image. Right? So any defects on your face that maybe she can't see, the mirror is not the one that will expose those defects. Okay? The mirror will protect, safeguard, right? And dignify you by not showing your reflection to the person after you. A marriage, a friendship, believers are the exact same way. We have to come to a point in our marriage, and again, not right away, come to a point in our marriage where we have difficult conversations with each other, to the point, what I mean by difficult is that to better ourselves, to perfect our craft. Okay? So if that means that, for example, you read a salam or a marsiya and your wife or your spouse says, you know what, you went too high here, be careful, don't do this, right? If it means that you're giving a speech, and your spouse says, you know what, avoid these words, don't go here, watch your arm movements, why do you always touch your hat? All these things, it's perfecting your craft, right? But we have to be able to absorb it. We have to be able to take it, hazm it, digest it, knowing full well it comes from a source that's not gaining anything, but actually what? Actually helping me in the process. That's what a true spouse does, a true friend does, a true believer does, is that, look, my perfection is dependent on this person in front of me. And they're helping me fulfill my goal, provided that we put the ego aside and say, okay, yeah, you're right. I'm going to try to not touch my hat as much and move around as much as I can. I'm sorry, I can't. Those of you who I can't. I've tried very hard. I mute when I watch my speeches, and I know I move a lot. I know. I do this a lot. I do that. I get it. Mujhe malum hai. Sab kuch malum hai. Mujhe malum hai. I can't fix myself. I don't know what it is. I have no idea what it is. I'm very active. If you tie my hands together, I'll be doing this the entire speech. I can't. Aap log umeed mat rakhiye, I can't change myself. Okay? Sorry. Side point. Okay? So that's what a mirror does. The second thing the mirror does is it preserves the dignity of the individual. Right? So all the defects of the person don't need to be exposed to anybody outside the home. It hurts me sometimes when I talk to wives in the parking lot, or I talk to husbands in the parking lot of the center on my way back, and the wife sits there and there's a group of people and she's just bashing the husband. Or the husband sits there and bashes the wife. I feel awkward, the person beside me, it's all joke, comical, ha, 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 ha. After a while it's like, okay, I gotta go. Thanks, I want to leave. It's awkward, right? Preserve the dignity of your relationship. Okay? When you do that, the person in front of you will want to see you change. If you are constantly bashing them whatever chance you get, there are literally some people in our community who can't wait for a new speaker to come in town because those are a new fresh set of ears. I can go and bash my spouse to this person because he's never heard it before. It's new material for him. And then you have me, who I frequent some communities, and I know, oh my God, here they come. Right? And sometimes now I stop them. I flat say, Dekhiye, if you're going to do burai of your spouse, please, I don't want to hear it. Aap mujhse mat boliye, I don't want to hear it. And then they get upset. Aapse nahi bolunga to kaise bolunga? I don't know. I don't want to hear it. I want you to pretend like you respect your spouse. At least to me, Baba. At least to me. Right? So be a mirror for each other. That mirror will ignite change inside of us. Okay? Remember one example. The earth rotates on its own axis, right? The earth is by itself rotating, correct? In that halat of rotation, it rotates around the sun. It has its own rotation. It has a second rotation. We have our own system of change, our own jihad to change, but part of that change within us is to help someone else change as well. When I elevate my spouse, I elevate myself. When I change my friend for the better, I change myself in the process. When I sit there and I make my child better, I make myself better. When I make another believer better, I make myself better. Okay? So change is very difficult for obvious reasons. And tomorrow, inshallah, we'll look at the idea of, fine, steps of change and how to sustain that change. You know, sometimes we think that the day of Ashura is done and our Aza is finished and now we can go back to our pre-Muharram lives. You know, I've dedicated my 10 nights to Imam Hussein. He's given his life on the day of Ashura. As one ustad of mine said, the Ashura of Hussein was on the 10th of Muharram. But from the 11th Muharram on, the Ashura of Zainab now begins. This woman for 10 days looked after the tents, looked after the children, did her role to support her brother, stand beside her brother, be there for her brother. But now that her brother is gone, Zainab now takes this mission, says, Bhaiya, I will take it to Kufa and Sham, back to Medina, but I won't let anyone forget the sacrifice that you have made. There comes a moment now where this qafla now is getting ready to go towards Kufa and Sham in this very difficult journey. Somebody asked Imam Sajjad, Mawla, tell me all about the events of Karbala. Tell me the most difficult portion of Karbala. Imam Sajjad thinks for a moment, tears rolling down his face, doesn't talk about Ali Akbar's Barchi, or Qasim's lash, or Abbas's arms, or Hussein's Asri Ashur. He says just 3 words, Sham, Sham, Sham. They're moving towards Sham now. They're leaving Karbala now. But how do they leave Karbala? There's just one small tukra from the story I want to share with you tonight. Iltamas dua. Umar bin Saad and his evil nature says, take the qafla of the Bani Hashim through the Maidan of Karbala, then go towards Kufa. I want them to see who they're leaving behind. There comes a moment now, the qafla is ready to go. Everyone is on the horses and the camels. It moves towards the Maidan of Karbala. The Shuhada of Karbala, like flowers in a flower bed, can be seen everywhere. Everyone now does their respective salams. There comes a moment now, from the distance now, the trampled body of Hussein can be seen. Imam Sajjad gets off his horse, makes his way in front of his Baba's lash, sits there in front of his Baba's lash, looking at his father, looking up to the sky. It seems like his face is changing color. Bibi Zainab says, I looked at Sajjad, I saw that his halat is not good. He's changing colors, he's grieving, he's crying. I saw the trampled body of Hussein. I thought to myself, I have to do something. One report say is that she fell herself off the horse, went towards Sajjad, says, Sajjad beta, let's go towards Kufa and Sham. It's time to go. Imam Sajjad looks up to Bibi Zainab, says, Puppy Amma, I will go. I will go. Just answer me one question. Have you ever heard of a son leaving his father unburied like I'm leaving my Baba on the plains of Karbala? سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. ماتم يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين.